Okay, so today we're going to talk about coil method, right? We're going to create a coil vessel in here, and one of the big things that we bring with that is the idea of score and slip. That's going to be our way to join clay together. One of our great examples would be the work of Maria Martinez. This work that you see here from 1934 was a piece she created, and she was part of the San Ildefonso Pueblo. So we'll now join in to create a coil vessel. Of course, we're going to start with a nice lump of clay here, get our base created first, and before we get going with our coil vessel, we're going to figure out what the bottom is going to be. And so we're going to make the bottom using the slab technique, or we're going to roll out a slab of clay to a desired thickness. Now this slab hopefully will be how we gauge the thickness of the walls too. So the thickness that I make for the base here is also going to be the thickness of the coils that will build up the walls of the pottery piece. So we have rolled out a nice slab here. It's about a ½ inch thick or so, as you can see, and I'm going to make a base. This is when I'm going to introduce a great tool, kind of a decorator tool. Any kind of turning sort of surface that you can use is very handy for this, and it's difficult to imagine doing it without. But if you don't have one, you certainly can work around with it, but they're great to have, some kind of decorator tool. And now I'm going to use this to create the base. So that's happened, and I've cut the base out. And now I have my base cut out, made of slab. Now we're going to create the coils that are going to start to build up the vessel walls. The first and subsequent coils, as they stack together, they will need to be joined using our slipping and scoring and slipping technique. So a great scoring tool, any kind of pointed tool will work. This is a needle tool or probe that I'll be using here. And as you can see, the decorator tool comes in handy almost from the beginning, as I can stay in one place and move across and get a nice dense series of score marks across that slab where I'm going to put my coil clay. So the scoring process, the scoring technique is the first step, and then next we're going to apply slip to join together the pieces of clay. Now we're going to roll out our first coil that's going to be attached to this. And this is where it takes a little bit of practice to master. We're going to take a piece of clay and we're going to roll it into a rope-like coil. And remember, our base is about a ½ inch thick, so we're going to want our coils to match that thickness. So when we roll out coils of clay, you want to have a firm, flat surface, a surface that you can apply a little bit of pressure and maybe even have some width to it to where you can roll out a pretty big coil. I'm going to roll out a smaller coil just for demonstration's sake, and I'm going to try to match that thickness that I created on the slab that is the bottom. So as we roll it out, we want to try to apply pressure to mush it down, but we're also rolling at the same time. It may take a little bit of practice to do this, so don't be discouraged if it takes a while to get there, but a good rolled coil. Okay, so we want to roll out those coils to where they are about the same thickness as that base that we created. Now the good news here is that to create a coil vessel, you'll get a lot of practice. So if the coils are a little bit hard to create at first, you'll be able to master it, I think, by the time you're finished with your pottery piece. So don't be discouraged. Okay, now we're going to go on to connect together our bits of clay. And this is where we bring in the slip. And slip is just a version of the same kind of clay body. And in this case, I've got the slip jar labeled. This is white stoneware. And so I created a slip that is the same kind of clay. The slip is a very watery version of the clay. It has a consistency of like runny milkshake or yogurt, and we use that to join the clay together once the scoring has taken place. So we've scored the clay now all the way around. We've made our coils, and we're ready to join those together. So with my slip, I'm going to glaze the area where I have scored the base and apply a decent amount to it. And now I'm ready to apply the coil to it. Now I can, just to be safe, I can take my coil and score it as well, just to get a good bond between the two. It's the best practice to score both things being attached to one another. However, at times, if everything is still quite wet and you're doing this all in one session, I think you can forego scoring both elements as long as they're slip. So we're going to go ahead and put score lines on both elements and the slip in between. And once again, here's where the decorator wheel is great, as I can press firmly to join those two together and really not move my hand and let the decorator wheel turn and apply pressure evenly all the way around. Now, when I get to the first rotation, completing the first rotation, you can either cut that piece off, and that way you have concentric rings that stay at the same level, or I can continue my coil right up onto the next coil and run that all the way to there. It's going to go relatively fast because the building process is quite immediate, and you'll find that you'll get to a size very quickly that is very near the shape that you want. Well, once we've made one revolution around the vessel, connecting that first coil to the base, we're now going to really join that together well, and that is with maybe some kind of wooden tool or your finger or any kind of additional tool to really come in here and bring that coil into the base and firm up that connection. That is one of the most important connections to have between the vase and the base. So we want to make sure we get that right. And once you have several coils, or even all of your coils on there, it may be very difficult for you to reach that down inside the vessel. So we're going to go right around and join this together well with some sort of tool or just your finger, to where that really now has one bit of clay. All right, now we have quite a few coils added to our vessel. We've joined them well as they've gone up. We've applied slip and scored as necessary, and you can see this vessel's really starting to take shape. There's going to come a time when you're creating this that it may need to dry and become leather hard, especially if the contours are more challenging, cantilever outward or inward. It's very soft material, of course, while it's being rolled out, and we want ideally for it to be more firm as we maybe shape or blend as needed all the coils. So I'm getting closer in this phase to the finished stage, and it really is now a good time to pause and allow that to dry some and pick it up at our next session. Okay, and now we have the completed coil vessel. As you can see, this has been fired and glazed. Some of the coils have been treated with a different kind of technique here to give it a little bit more of an interest towards the top. You can keep the coil texture, or you can, like Maria Martinez's work, blend those coils together. So the choice is yours on that. And there you have it. That's the coil technique, inspired by the work of Maria Martinez. Next, we're going to be creating a slab vessel, so stay tuned for that, and thanks for watching.